Welcome back, everyone. This will be my full Book of Boba Fett Episode 7 finale video. There were a whole bunch of Easter eggs and things setting up The Mandalorian Season 3, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get everything. I will be doing videos for The Mandalorian Season 3 and for the Obi-Wan Kenobi episodes that we're going to be getting in May. May the 4th be with you, and a whole bunch of Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Vader. Careful for spoilers for the episode if you haven't seen it yet. I'll just start at the beginning and we'll go through scene by scene talking about Easter eggs, WTF moments as we go along, starting with the episode title, In the Name of Honor. It's mainly meant to be a reference to Boba Fett's honor and how his character has changed over time, how he's changed since he's been with Cad Bane, because Cad Bane keeps throwing that in his face, telling him that he's a cold-blooded killer. But we've seen how Boba Fett has changed since he was rescued by the Tusken Raiders and was taken into their tribe, how he's trying to take care of the people of Tatooine and do right by them. And the title of Honor is also meant to be a reference to the Mandalorian, Din Djarin's honor, because by his Mandalorian creed, he's going to honor the promise that he made to help Boba Fett. But the actual opening scene is of Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, and Mando inspecting the ruins of Madame Garsa Fwip's bar after the bombing. Press F to pay respects for her, R.I.P. I guess she's confirmed dead now because she didn't come back. For those of you asking about Max Rebo, though, there were all these memes after last week's episode because Max Rebo was not in the cantina playing with the band when it was blown up, confirming that he did survive, but now everybody's like, wait a minute, what did he know? Obviously that's not true. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni just didn't want to kill off Max Rebo, so they just conveniently made it so that he wasn't there when this happened. They make a bunch of references to Cobb Vanth and the other townspeople from Mos Pelgo, who they believe are coming to help them, which they do by the end of the episode, but it takes them a while to find out what actually happened between Cobb Vanth and Cad Bane. Boba Fett does agree to stop all spice trade in and around the Mos Pelgo area of Tatooine, and even though Fennec Shand seems really upset by this, like, we're gonna lose a bunch of money, they're not gonna lose that much money. The only difference now is they just have to go around Mos Pelgo, they just can't go through it. They make a bunch of Cobb Vanth references throughout the episode, but if it wasn't clear, obviously he survived. That's what the whole post-credit scene was about. I'll talk more about that when we get to that part of the episode. He's in the bacta tank, Thundercat's gonna upgrade him with some cybernetics, he'll be fine. Then right after talking about Cobb Vanth, right on cue, Cad Bane walks into town. Stranger walks into town. They pay off the joke about the Jawas yoinking parts off everything in sight. They finally reveal the Ithorian mayor, Mok Shaiz, played by Robert Rodriguez, director of a lot of the episodes in the series, has been holed up with this same Pike Syndicate captain, played by Phil LaMarr this whole time. If it wasn't clear, he was meant to be the same Pike that Boba Fett tried to bargain with in the flashbacks. He's just been the Pike who's been in charge of their operation on Tatooine the whole time, answering to the Syndicate leaders back on their homeworld, Obadiah. If you didn't watch the Clone Wars episodes, that planet was featured during those episodes. It's up here in this part of the Outer Rim along the Kessel Run. They do reference the Pike's home planet a couple times later in the episode. The captain reveals that they're the ones who orchestrated the killings of Boba Fett's Tusken Raider tribe because they didn't want to have to pay their fees. There were a lot of people that were wondering if it actually would have been Cad Bane. Like, there was going to be some twist behind who really killed the Tusken Raiders. And there was a twist, but it was the Pikes that killed them, and they just made it look like the Red Nikto speeder bike gang. They have a couple scenes with the Pike captain and the mayor here just to foreshadow Fennec Shand showing up to kill them later, revenge style. That even though it's not Luke Skywalker himself, his X-Wing returns to his home planet Tatooine, again for the first time that we know of since the events of Return of the Jedi, when he came to rescue Han Solo and the others from Jabba the Hutt, confirming all of our theories about the choice that Grogu would make. During Episode 6, there were so many scenes with Luke Skywalker and Grogu and Mando and Ahsoka just setting up Grogu choosing Mando over Luke Skywalker and the Jedi path. And I do like the way they just kind of skip past that part. Like, they just show the X-Wing showing up on Tatooine again, and you instantly understand the choice that Grogu made. They also transition from this shot of Luke Skywalker's X-Wing to another Anakin Skywalker Easter egg for his father, who also grew up on Tatooine, with the pit droids from Phantom Menace waking up from stasis when the proximity alerts go off. I also think that Peli Motto's hangar bay here in the Mos Eisley spaceport is meant to be the same hangar bay that Han Solo parked the Millennium Falcon in during A New Hope. All of the droids that she's had with her so far this season show up again. The BD-1 droid that Cal Kestis had in Jedi Fallen Order. It's not the exact same droid that Cal Kestis had, it's just the same type of droid. The new type of Gonk droid, the R5 droid, the Treadwell droid. A lot of these droids, not all of them, but a lot of them are from the beginning of A New Hope. They try to reuse as many old props and droids as possible in Star Wars productions, so if you feel like an object or a weapon or even a small detail in the background of any scene in any Star Wars episode or movie is an Easter egg for something, it probably is. Love the way they reveal Grogu crawling out of the X-Wing cockpit as if they're joking that he piloted it here himself. He is smart enough to do that, but the cockpit controls are just not set up for someone his size, so it would be almost impossible practically for him to do it. Like, he just couldn't reach all the buttons, even though he does love to push buttons. That's why R2-D2 gets all pissy with Peli Motto, because he's basically saying, no, I'm the one that piloted the X-Wing. I think it's better they did it this way than bringing back Luke Skywalker again just to come drop him off on Tatooine. It's always cool to see their Luke Skywalker scenes, see how they've evolved their deepfake technology, but I feel like less is more when it comes to Luke Skywalker stuff. Notice, though, very carefully if you look in the cockpit, Grogu does not have Yoda's lightsaber, and later in the episode, he also doesn't have it anywhere on him. Everyone was wondering, if we knew that he was going to choose the Mandalorian armor, would Luke still let him have Yoda's lightsaber, or would Grogu try to yoink it, or would it just stay with Luke? So for now, I'm just assuming that it's staying with Luke Skywalker at the Jedi Temple. Grogu could always go back and get it later in the timeline before the destruction of the temple. Personally, I think it'd be more impactful if eventually at some point in the future he constructs his own lightsaber. But like right now, for instance, his tiny little hands aren't even big enough to wrap around the hilt of Yoda's little lightsaber, and it's already a very small lightsaber. The only way Grogu will wield a lightsaber short term, like in the next couple of seasons of The Mandalorian or wherever else he shows up, is if he throws the Darksaber or someone else's lightsaber using the Force, which would actually be really cool. Peli Motto kinda does Grogu dirty here, saying that he's got a terrible name and there's no way she's calling him that. I think that's Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau just making jokes about everyone in real life who wanted to keep calling him Baby Yoda even after they revealed his true name. Like, I'm not gonna call him Grogu, I'm still gonna call him Baby Yoda. Maybe because he's part of Yoda's species, but he's also taken the Mandalorian armor, become a Mandalorian. We should call him the Yoda-Lorian. Love the way the tiny Mandalorian armor looks on him too. Beskar chainmail tailor-made to fit his tiny little body. For those of you asking, obviously if he outgrows it while Mando is still alive, because he'll grow very slowly, Mando would just replace it with a larger version. The scene of him eating the worms, slurping them down, really funny. It just meant to be a callback to that scene from The Mandalorian Season 2 when he was eating the seafood with Mando before they met Bo-Katan and the Night Owls.
I know you're hungry.
It's almost like tradition now that in every single episode that features Grogu, there has to either be a scene of him trying to eat something or make a reference to being hungry and wanting more food. We get our first Boba Fett versus Cad Bane gunslinger rematch standoff. Cad Bane uses the same insult that Boba Fett did earlier in the series, kind of implying that Boba Fett learned the insult from him originally when he was training under him as a bounty hunter.
Well, if that isn't the Quacta calling the Stifling slimy.
If that's not the Quacta calling the Stifling slimy.
As I explained in my previous episode videos, there's a lot of untold history between the two of them that Dave Filoni had established during the Clone Wars episodes when Boba Fett was still very young. There was a batch of lost Clone Wars episodes that were unfinished and he never brought back during the Clone Wars Season 7. In part of those episodes, we're going to cover the story of Boba Fett training with Cad Bane, going on adventures, and how their relationship plays out in that part of the timeline. They make a lot of references to that period in their life during the episode. That's why Cad Bane makes so many references to teaching Boba Fett more lessons, like this will be my final lesson to you, because Boba Fett learned to be a bounty hunter from Cad Bane. Originally, those lost Clone Wars episodes with the two of them together were going to end with them having a big gunslinger standoff where Boba Fett gets Cad Bane, but he almost kills Boba Fett with a headshot. He's saved by his Mandalorian armor, and that's how his helmet got the dent in it. And that's why in episode 6, Cad Bane told Cobb Vanth that he should have kept the armor. He also tells Boba Fett the same thing in this episode, you should have let him keep the armor. Whereas the early Boba Fett episodes were going for more of a Godfather in space vibe, with him taking over Jabba's criminal empire, since Mando showed up, the whole tone of the show has shifted back to classic space western. Cad Bane, for instance, very much inspired by the Lee Van Cleef character from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and that's kind of the way they use him in the series. Mando is the good, Cad Bane is the bad, and Boba Fett is the ugly. They confirm my theory that some of Boba Fett's factions in his alliance, Jabba's former capos, betray them to the Pike Syndicate. You could also make a Red Wedding Game of Thrones reference. The Pikes send their regards. The same way Roose Bolton and the Freys betrayed the Starks at the last minute. It's the Aqualish, the Trandoshans, and the Klatooians, so you have to assume that after their victory at the end of the episode, Boba Fett then eventually goes around and deals with all these capos and either gets them in line or just flat out kills them off. R.I.P. to the Gamorrean guards. They never reference their deaths later in the episode, like nobody ever says anything about them after this. Like, what happened to the guards? Where'd they go? Did they just take off? Maybe we should check on that. Press F to pay respects. They also set up this scene of them inside the ruins of the cantina as things turn against them as a parallel for the Mandalorian Season 1 finale where they were surrounded by Moff Gideon's forces. I guess if we're making Western references, you could make a Young Guns reference to the ending of that movie, the way they bust out of the house. The whole conversation that Mando and Boba Fett have here about not wanting to bail on each other is also meant to play into the theme of the episode, in the name of honor. Like, in the name of their own honor, the Mandalorian honor, the Mandalorian creed, Boba Fett's own honor, his own code, they will not bail. When Mando says that they'll both die in the name of honor, you could also think of it as another Game of Thrones reference because Pedro Pascal played Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones Season 4, and there's a big Ned Stark honor theme during Season 1, where Cersei Lannister basically tells Ned Stark, your honor will get you killed here. Which it did, she was 100% correct about that. Mando says his trademark catchphrase again, this is the way. The Twi'lek Majordomo reveals that he went to a rich kid prep school on Coruscant, and they use his talent for speechifying to just stall the Pikes for time. When he mentions the Obadiah High Council, that's just the group that rules over the Pike Syndicate on their homeworld. Boba Fett and Mando use their jetpacks again finally to surprise them with an aerial assault. It's also meant to be a callback to Mando and Cobb Vanth, both using the exact same jetpacks because it was still Boba Fett's armor, to attack the Krayt Dragon during The Mandalorian Season 2, except this time it's two people who are well versed in the art of the Rising Phoenix, as the armorer calls their jetpacks. They finally let them use a lot of their really cool Mandalorian weapons. Boba Fett uses his knee rockets a bunch of times, Mando uses his whistling birds again too. Them soaking both of them in blaster fire with their Beskar armor is also meant to be a callback to Mando using his to serve as a human shield for Bo-Katan and the Night Owls during Season 2. Their armor can soak a ton of energy damage like that. It still hurts them a lot, but the armor itself will not crack. Then if you want to make another Game of Thrones reference, you could also say the large land speeder with the most Pelgo people riding in to help them is kind of like the Knights of the Vale coming in to save Jon Snow and the others during the Battle of the Bastards during Season 6. You probably recognize that land speeder that they ride in on. It's the same one that's inside Owen and Beru Lar's home during A New Hope. It's called a V-35 Courier. It was also featured in Mos Pelgo during The Mandalorian Season 2. They bring back that same Weequay bartender played by W. Earl Brown from Justified and Deadwood, same shows that Timothy Olyphant came from, and he references Cad Bane Cobb Vanth standoff. All these different references just meant to set up that post-credit scene where they reveal him inside the Bacta tank healing and getting ready to get his cybernetic enhancements. They give Black Krrsantan a bunch of badass takedowns. He also winds up soaking almost as much blaster fire as Mando and Boba Fett do, without the Beskar armor to help him. He's just that tough, like Wookiees are just that tough. Then this big second wave of giant droids that look like droidekas are actually Scorponok Annihilator droids. They're still from the Star Wars prequels, just like the droidekas. They're kind of like modified, upgraded droidekas. They're a super deep-cut prequels Easter egg because the Scorponok droids were actually the original concept art version of what would eventually become the droidekas in the actual prequel movies. They do this kind of thing in Star Wars all the time, where they'll bring back some unused concept art as something slightly different in like a future project. They did the same thing with the tank from The Mandalorian Season 2. Like, the tank was an unused concept design from Empire Strikes Back in the original trilogy that George Lucas later brought back during the prequels as a slightly larger version. The tank was originally supposed to show up during Empire Strikes Back, and even though they didn't use it in Empire Strikes Back, I think that they actually did sell it as a toy that you could buy back in the day. Boba Fett uses his rocket launcher again, finally. Always love when he uses the rocket launcher. Mando tries to use his flamethrower and the Darksaber against their shields, but it's all meant to set up the really badass takedowns with the baby Rancor and with Grogu later in the episode, where they all team up and work together to take them down. That's also why they show you Black Krrsantan being able to push one of his hands through one of their shields, just to foreshadow the baby Rancor being powerful enough to do that with its arms. Right on cue, Peli Motto shows up with the pit droids for some reason and Grogu in tow. Her line about the Force working in mysterious ways is just meant to obviously directly set up Grogu using the Force to disable their rickshaw cart droid so that he can use the Force to destroy the Scorponok droids with their help. You have to remember that Grogu, even though he seems like a child, is over 50 years old, so he's actually really smart. He just seems like a tiny little baby. Love the Boba Fett reveal entering on the Rancor's back. They finally pay off him learning to ride it, and it wrecks the hell out of the Scorponok droids, both of them. They weaken the shields just enough for Mando to get in some hits with the Darksaber, and Grogu rolling up like a boss to force lift it. That's also meant to be a callback to him saving Mando from the Mudhorn during The Mandalorian Season 1 by lifting it into the air. The joke about him accidentally pulling the droid's bolt to him so fast that it knocks him on his ass is just to show you that he still has a lot of Force training left to do. Like, he's very powerful in the Force, but he's not invincible. They even give the Rancor a legit finishing move fatality, like give us Mortal Kombat, but make it Star Wars.
Do it.
Scorpion wins fatality.
The way he destroys the second one, they also want to show you just how formidable the Rancor can be when trained properly. And remember, this is still just a baby Rancor. It's meant to be a parallel for Grogu, like super powerful creature that will someday be way more powerful. Because they make a King Kong reference later, you could make some Godzilla vs. Kong references with their fight here, with the Rancor ripping it apart the same way that Kong rips apart Mechagodzilla. When the Rancor starts throwing all the Pike Syndicate people around and eating them, they give a couple of Wilhelm screams. It'd be weird if they did Star Wars without some Wilhelm screams in it. And it would have been weird for them to make all those Rancor pit references earlier in the show and then not have a Rancor eat someone. And then they finally pay off the big Boba Fett vs. Cad Bane rematch. They make even more references to those lost Clone Wars episodes with the two of them flying around together having adventures as bounty hunters, and it's just meant to show you how he's evolved over time, how now he is a much more honorable person. The way their fight actually goes down, Cad Bane being a faster draw than him, is canon. That's why Boba Fett admits that he's faster, but his Mandalorian armor protects him. That's more references to their last Gunslinger standoff where Cad Bane gave him the dent in his helmet with the headshot. They reference his father, Jango Fett again, and him beating him with his Tusken Raider gaffy stick is also meant to be symbolic because he's not just looking out for himself anymore, he's being less selfish. He learned the skills with the Tuskens that he needed to beat Cad Bane. Like, if he'd been the same version of Boba Fett that he was during the original trilogy, they're implying that Cad Bane would have killed him. It's only because of the lessons that he learned with the Tuskens recently that he won the fight. So RIP Cad Bane, press F in the chat to pay respects. He was a badass bounty hunter and a really cool character, so it sucks that they did kill him off. And they showed you his death in the body after here to confirm the kill, so there's no confusion. It's like Darth Maul being killed by Obi-Wan during Star Wars Rebels. Like, you're meant to see the body, nope, he's definitely dead this time. The Rancor climbing the tower is meant to be a classic King Kong reference. If you look at the concept art over the end credits, it's a more literal King Kong reference because he's holding the woman as he's climbing the tower, but they didn't do that in the final version of the episode. Probably just to save a little bit of money. The land speeder that he picked up and tried to eat, then threw at all the people, is just a blue version of Luke Skywalker's land speeder. Mando gives Grogu the ball joint from the Razor Crest that he played with during Season 1 and Season 2. He saved it back during Season 2 before Moff Gideon destroyed the Razor Crest. That's why he still has it. The way the Rancor tries to eat Mando, though, here is kind of funny. It's like a little kid putting an action figure in his mouth trying to eat it. And they pay off another size matters not Yoda scene again when Grogu calms down the Rancor using the Force.
Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you? And where you should not.
Which, just like the Mudhorn scene during Season 1, tires him out just enough that he plops down right next to him and they both have a really solid nap in the middle of the street here. Then they pass by the Stormtrooper helmets on the Pikes in Mos Eisley to foreshadow the death of the Pikes. Heads on Pikes and dead Pikes. I see what you did there, Star Wars. Fennec Shand executes the rest of the Pike Syndicate leadership along with the mayor, now former mayor, RIP, also getting justice for the Tusken Raiders. Then I've been a big fan of the Book of Boba Fett theme music, but when they're walking through Mos Espa as they're all rebuilding, they play this cool Western version of the regular Boba Fett theme music. The reference to the Bacta tank being used is obviously meant to be a reference to the post-credit scene with Cobb Vanth healing himself. The scene with the special fruit here is meant to be another Godfather movies reference with the oranges and the fruit in the street, like Boba Fett is now the Godfather of Tatooine. Also, that fruit was featured during Star Wars Rebels and during the Bad Batch episodes. Then when everyone's reuniting at the end, they bring back the Ratcatcher droid too, like the Ratcatcher droid is now fully a member of the crew. And they do this cool mashup version of the Boba Fett theme music and then the Mandalorian theme music as they transition to the shot of Mando and Grogu leaving Tatooine in the new Naboo N1 starfighter, paying off the references about the tiny Grogu-sized pod that used to be used by the R2 units. Grogu tapping the glass over and over again to get him to punch the boosters is another callback to The Mandalorian Season 1 when he kept reaching to push the button over and over. And the whole idea here is that The Mandalorian Season 3 Episode 1 will pick up with the next adventure that they're currently on their way to, and we'll get those episodes by the end of this year. I'll do a larger Mandalorian Season 3 video before I do my next Peacemaker video. But the post-credit scene is Cobb Vanth recovering in the back to tank back at Jabba's palace, Thundercat's character preparing to modify him with cybernetic parts, just like Fennec Shand. Just to confirm that he is alive, he will come back in some future Star Wars project. If you spotted any other big Easter eggs in the episode that I didn't mention in the video, just write them below in the comments, and I will do a couple other bonus videos this weekend for everything, because there's still a lot of stuff that we have to talk about. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll get some Super Bowl trailer footage for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, but no promises there. Everyone click here for my Grogu Luke Skywalker video, and click here for that brand new Marvel X-Men teaser video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and this is the way.